Afternoon, everyone. David Little. I'm a corporate partner at Central London firm Bishop and Sewell. My main areas of expertise involve advising clients on buying and selling businesses.
Hi, Simon Hammond, Managing Director, Morpheus Insurance Solutions Limited. We specialise in commercial insurance.
Martin Brown of Elephant's Child. We are business growth advisors to the UK SME market. So Simon, David, good to be with you this afternoon. Let me just set the scene for this short discussion if I can. So I'm winding back to March of last year, and I'm thinking about one key indicator. We were about to go into our first lockdown. Everyone was very nervous about what the pandemic meant. And I can remember at that time we had a big market shock and the FTSE plunged to something like 5,190, just below 5,200. We sit here about 14 months later. It's been a torrid year. It's been an interesting year. It's been a very volatile year. FTSE now sits around 7,000. And if I think about that from a business growth advisory standpoint, we've seen phases of activity. We certainly saw a sort of 14-week hiatus when really nothing was happening. From October, it really started to pick up. So we're seeing a very active market. There seems to be a lot of money out there. It seems to be quite difficult to find businesses to deploy that money in. But we are seeing, for example, an exit of a manufacturing business. We started on a big growth journey with a retail business this week. We're talking a lot more about management buyouts and employee ownership trusts with a scaffolding and construction business. And we're also seeing the pandemic, I think, forcing people to think about their own life and their own sort of aspirations. So we are seeing business discussions, business growth discussions, starting around that, and people think about what they want to do next. And finally, we're seeing activity where it's been forced on people. So we've just seen a sale go through that was forced due to ill health. We've seen a business leader die prematurely and leave a multi-million-pound business in trust to his 21-year-old son. And we've seen other businesses that have been forced to sell to fund divorce, amongst other things. So we're seeing a very active market at this moment in time. We hope there's a pathway out of lockdown. Curious to know what you guys are seeing. Perhaps I can come to you first, Simon.
Yeah, thanks, Martin. Yeah, I mean, putting the awfulness of the whole situation to one side, it's been quite an interesting time, generally speaking, business-wise. I mean, we were very lucky. We had an exceptional year last year for growth, where directors had more time on their hands to actually consider their supply chain, etc. And professional advisors such as David on the call were kind enough to introduce them to us. So we had a good year in terms of business. But what we tend to see at the moment, and it does link in with your activity, Martin, is a general increase in inquiries and uptake of directors and officers' liability. Effectively, we are in a recession, by a different name maybe, and it always it can produce sort of more litigious activity. And also when companies are seeking investment, the private equity backers would insist on directors and officers' liability. So that's been quite a good growth area for us. However, it is an exceptionally challenging market insurance-wise for D&O. I won't go into all the reasons why, but the market has contracted, underwriting criteria has tightened up, and rates have really increased. So yeah, interesting times.
And David, from a legal standpoint, what are you seeing?
The word I'd probably use to describe it would be patchy. I think it very much depends on the different business sectors. So those in catering, those in food retail have done very, very well, the big supermarkets, as we know. I'm expecting to see over the course of the next few months more distressed disposals, and there will be those entrepreneurs who will go with the old adage, the best time to seek to grow is when you're near the bottom, when you're coming out of recession. So I think we'll see a few brave people out there. I do think, as you said, there is a lot of pent-up demand. I think there's probably more cash out there than people expect. And I wonder whether there'll be a flurry again of disposals led by a fear that the last £1 million of business asset disposal relief could be removed in the autumn budget, or failing that next year. That probably that fear drove more transactional work in the early part of this year than I've ever seen before.
Yeah, that's worth picking up on, actually, isn't it? Because we had the same kind of experience. And I guess our encouragement now is, whilst people can think about disposing of their business, they can think about structures to do that. Talked earlier about management buyouts and employee ownership trusts, for example. There is no substitute for acting now, because you still need to be prepared to go into that transaction. I'm also curious about both of your points about the patchy nature of the marketplace. And I think that's one thing that is still making me nervous. We were going particularly well, but when we got to the end of tax year end, Easter coming very early in the month of April, and that bit of a pathway of people out of lockdown, suddenly business just slumped like that. So are you seeing that as well then, Simon, those kind of transactions, that spiky nature of the marketplace affecting your demand?
Yeah, no, I agree. It has been very much peaks and troughs, Martin. And the one thing I would stress with all the M&A activity that's going on, it's really important to consider warranty and indemnity insurance, especially considering the state of the economy. It's best to engage underwriters from the outset to make the whole process a lot quicker and easier. And it will cover off any inaccuracies in representations, misrepresentations, inaccurate warranties, etc. And unfortunately for David, that will mean that if skeletons come out of the closet after the transaction, that there's an insurance product to fall back on rather than going through a lengthy and expensive litigation process.
Yeah, that timing piece, David, if I come back to you then, that ability to prepare and be ready for that due diligence process. What advice are you giving around that?
Right. Well, first of all, the first thing I would say to any seller, I think the most important thing is that they've taken tax advice, that they're structuring the transaction in the best manner. That may mean splitting the shares perhaps with their spouse or with their ultimate beneficiaries if they're looking at estate planning. Just picking up on what Simon said, I've noticed that warranty and indemnity insurance, which for many years was in the doldrums, has certainly picked up over the last couple of years as clients become aware that the product is available at reasonable cost.
That's right. I mean, it's not cheap, but neither is it unaffordable.
No. I think it comes down to, Simon, peace of mind, really. It depends on the nature of the seller, the nature of the business, what their future plans are.
Absolutely. And the seller can actually take it out as well, and that gives the buyer confidence.
Yes.
And if we start to think about the market moving forward, so the rest of this year, I guess one of the common mistakes that we see with business owners is actually they do nothing. They want to wait and work out what the outcome is going to be before they act. And that's incredibly frustrating for us, because we've got this notion of controlling the controllables and really pushing forward. My counsel would be exactly that for business leaders. Get out there and start to work on your business and decide what you want to do next, so that your future aspirations can be well enabled by your business. Simon, what would your top tip be for business leaders?
Yes, good question, Martin. I would actually say, whilst business leaders are considering growth, for goodness sake, consider protection as well, and engage people like David. Obviously, Martin will, and his team can help with the growth journey, but also consider the protection side of things with the insurances and make sure they're buttoned up properly.
Very good. And your top tip, David? These things do take time to prepare.
Yes, yes, they are. I mean, I would advise businesses who are looking possibly to exit in 2 or 3 years' time. I would say don't overlook potential complementary acquisitions you could make on the way as a very quick way and possibly cost-effective way of achieving maybe a better multiple or improving the EBITDA of a business in the run-up to a potential sale in 3 years' time. So there's going to be real opportunities out there, and especially in certain sectors. Keep your eyes out for acquisitions, I would say to a business leader, and then you may end up doubling or trebling the amount you would receive on an exit.
Isn't it? So as this government support, this various modes of government support starts to wind itself out, and furlough, for example, comes to an end, there is a lot of speculation in the market, particularly with our insolvency practitioner friends, that will result in much more distress and insolvency type activity in the marketplace. Simon, you're going to have an interesting angle on that from an insurance point of view. What are you seeing? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's very interesting, actually. Obviously, there was a lot of government support last year for businesses, which was great. But the net effect of that was that there is now far more awareness of personal guarantees, whereas they perhaps haven't been considered quite as closely before by directors. So we are expecting to see an increase in personal guarantee insurance inquiries this year as the government supports dwindles. So it's going to be an interesting time for that. And I would have to say, supply and demand, obviously, if you're interested or you want to speak to somebody about personal guarantee insurance, I'd probably do it right now rather than hang on, because I've got a funny feeling that there's only one insurer in the UK who does it, and I think they might get very, very busy in the next few months.
Okay, so some awareness of that, David. What are your thoughts on how that's going to affect the marketplace?
I mean, I'd first of all just like to echo what Simon said. I mean, it's a very valuable product to have, personal guarantee insurance. We're seeing a real rise in clients who are being asked to give personal guarantees when taking on facilities, and we'd always urge them to take professional advice before simply signing up to that. There will be changes this year, undoubtedly. There will be, with the furlough scheme coming to an end, we're expecting, certainly my employment colleagues are expecting there to be a lot more consultations with employers looking to work out what they can do with staff they no longer require on a full-time basis.
Yeah, so challenging times, but conversely for others that might bring opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's very much the message. I think that will be the pattern throughout 2021 as we zoom back to almost where we were immediately before the pandemic. There will definitely be winners and losers across the sectors.
Very good. So let me try and summarize. Thanks for that, Simon. Thank you, David. So what we're seeing is an active market. It's a patchy market, but nevertheless, we think we're all seeing opportunity. Get yourself well insured and protected. Make sure you're legally prepared, and strategically make sure you're casting the net perhaps much wider than you might have done in a regular trading market. My sense is there are good times ahead. What's your final thought, Simon?
I couldn't agree more. I think this year is going to be a game of two halves. A little bit of uncertainty at the moment, but I think confidence is rebuilding, especially with the vaccination program. People have their second jabs and get out there and start doing more business. Excellent.
And closing remarks from you, David?
I'm very positive. And even clients of mine in certain sectors which have been hit, let's say the travel sector, are seeing real pent-up demand, bookings for autumn and bookings for next year. And if they can just ride out the storm over the next couple of months, there's some real riches ahead for them. And I think that would apply across many, many sectors as well.
Very good. Thanks for your time this afternoon, Simon and David. Good to see you again. And we look forward to speaking in the future.
Cheers, Martin.
Bye, Martin.